Dear friends, part second is starting about J.C. Bose. In the age of 19, Jagadish Chandra Bose was a Bachelor of Arts. He wanted to go to England for higher studies. His father Bhagavan Chandra wanted that his son should become a teacher and serve his people and his country. His mother allowed him to go foreign country, thus her son wanted to study in a foreign country. She had saved some money. She also wanted to sell her jewels to meet the expenses of her son's voyage. Bhagavan Chandra Bose prevented her, and he managed to find the money on his own. At last, Jagadish was on his way to England. The year was 1880. "22-year-old Jagadish Chandra Bose stepped into the ship. He was stepping into a new phase of life, which laid the foundations of a brilliant future. In London, he first studied medicine, but he repeatedly fell ill, so he had to discontinue the course. He then studied natural science in Christ Church College, Cambridge. It was necessary to learn Latin in order to study natural science. Jagadish had already learned it. He passed the Tripos examination with distinction. In addition to the Cambridge Tripos examination, he passed the Bachelor of Science examination of London University also. Jagadish Chandra Bose was back in India. He joined the staff of the Presidency College, Calcutta. The Indian teachers in the college were paid 1/3 of what the British teachers were paid. So Jagadish Chandra Bose refused his salary but worked for 3 years. His deep knowledge, zest for work, and cultured behavior won over those in charge of the college. They saw to it that he was given the full salary of the post and not 1/3. Teaching the same lessons year in and year out was very tedious to Bose. His was an alert mind, always on the lookout for new ideas. He wanted to do research, to widen his knowledge and discover new things. A laboratory is necessary for research. Many scientific instruments are required. Jagadish Chandra Bose had no laboratory. and he did not have the instruments, but he was not disheartened. For 8 or 10 years, he spent as little out of his salary as possible, lived a very strict life, saved money and bought a laboratory. Generally, Marconi's name is associated with the invention of wireless. This made possible the use of the radio. Jagadish Chandra Bose had also conducted independent research in the same field. Marconi was able to announce the result of his work and show how wireless telegraphy worked earlier than Jagadish Chandra Bose. So, he is called the father of the radio. In the year 1896, Bose wrote a research article on electromagnetic waves. The Royal Society of England, which is famous all over the world, was impressed by this. He was honored with the degree of Doctor of Science. He needed money to continue his work. Bengal, his homeland, came forward to bear the expenses. Bose became famous in the world of science. In India and in other countries, there was a strong belief that only Westerners could achieve anything worthwhile in science. Bose proved this wrong concept. He showed that there was a geniuses elsewhere too. Bose needed scientific equipment, but the instruments he needed were not available. But this did not hamper his work. Early in his life, he had learned to make his equipment with his own hands. The equipment with his own hands. The scientific instruments he took to England were those he himself had made. Electricity was then his special field of work. He had successfully worked at transmitting electromagnetic waves from one place to another. Bose demonstrated his discoveries at the Royal Society in England. The gathering of scientists were profoundly impressed. They praised this achievement as a singular one from a citizen of India. Our country was until then famous only as the home of philosophy and religion. Bose won respect for Indians in science too. The renowned papers of London, namely the Spectator and the Times, were all praised for this Indian scientist. For without the proper facilities and with the available material, Bose had achieved wonderful results, and he had done his research along with his teaching work. After he lectured at the Royal Society, Jagadish Chandra Bose was invited by scientific associations in many other countries. He visited France, Germany, America and Japan. Besides England, he lectured at several places and explained his discoveries. In Paris, he gave a lecture on this similarity between the living and a non-living world. Radar is a very wonderful scientific device. It is used by sailors on the sea. It is also used to get information about aeroplanes coming towards a place. So you see how useful it is during a war. If the aeroplane of the enemy try to attack a city, the radar shows their movement. J.C. Bose worked out some details of a very great importance. These are being used in the working of the radar. When Jagadish Chandra Bose again visited England, Cambridge University, honored him. When Jagadish Chandra Bose again visited England, Cambridge University honored him as a professor. Generally, when a man invents something new, he declares that nobody can make use of it without his permission. If anybody desires to make use of it, he will have to pay him money. Why? Because the inventor has worked hard and he has used his time and brains for his invention. It is not right to make use of his work without paying him. An inventor can make lakhs of rupees by just one or two inventions. Bose had invented many instruments. They have since been used by many industries. When he was offered money for these, he did not accept it. He was a very generous and noble. He felt that knowledge was not anyone's personal property. He permitted anyone the use of the fruits of his work. The Davy Faraday Research Institute is a very famous scientific institute for scientific research in England. This institute requested Jagadish Chandra Bose to continue his research there. Many eminent scientists pressed him to do so. Hence, he worked there for some time and discovered new things. When an outside stimulus is applied to the muscles of a man or a non-living thing, say a mineral, they respond to it. Bose wondered whether this could happen in a plant also. To test this, he brought a leaf, a carrot, and a tulip from the garden. He applied. he applied the stimulus, example electricity. It was confirmed that plants also respond in a similar way. This was explained at a meeting of the Royal Society by Jagadish Chandra Bose. While explaining his discoveries, he said that the Indian sages had understood such principles thousands of years ago. He modestly added that his discoveries were an insignificant part of the great truth that our ancient sages had realized. Thank you to all.